can you just basically share with us in this whole case a little bit more about the difference that you experienced between SCDF and Mindef, and in relation to your patent? Yeah.
I think when we invented the Swift, the intention was really for mass casualty disaster. It's triggered off with the 911 incident. Okay, so therefore, SCDF, Civil Defense, is very relevant. You know, I'm a rescue battalion platoon commander. We invented this together with Dr. Mark, who is also in the Civil Defense. So, having the pattern is one thing, but we actually made the whole vehicle and let SCDF do an exercise for 6 months. They conducted a few big exercises, and they were so happy. They came back. They said, "I want it." SCDF actually respected our patent. They actually when they called for tender, they were actually inside their tender. They will actually put in an agreement where the vendors have to come and sign with us, so that we give them the licensing right. And they have been doing that. They made about, over the last 10 years, about 9 to 10 vehicles. And every time before the tender, those engineering companies who are making it will come forward and get the signature from me. And then we have the agreement signed. Then they tender. And they actually pay for the licensing fee. At the same time, we waive the SCDF part. So SCDF is actually free to use, as long as they use it in Singapore for the government purpose. So we have actually proper arrangement and correct arrangement under the law for IP and licensing. Whereas for Mindef, it's a completely different story. We were the one who caught them doing this, because during the 2011 National Day rehearsal, during one of the rehearsals, there was a big publicity, because Swift was actually, or the military army version of Swift was actually put up. And there was a big publicity, if you recall, from the TV, Channel News Asia, Chinese newspaper, the Straits Times, and everywhere. They carried the story where they have a big press conference to tell the world that Mindef has innovation and invented this vehicle. And they showed the capability of this vehicle, and Mindef was shown. And that's when we caught them, because the vehicle looks exactly the same except for color, which is understood, it's camouflage. And that was how it started. When we asked them to just inform them politely with a letter that this is something under patent, it's already patented, they came back with a very nasty knock, and how this whole thing started. We have no choice but to defend our turf, and also to actually let the rest of the Singaporeans know that they have to respect IP. That's why we have taken the route of trying to sue them, because they were totally very high-handed. So after we have relayed that, Mindef said, "You can't sue us because we are ministry. You must serve your writ to the AG chambers." And so we then have to go ahead. So Mindef never had any licensing agreement with any of the vendors with us, so that they can license the thing. They just went ahead and they made it.
If I'm getting you right, basically what you're saying is that Mindef effectively went ahead to produce the vehicle, and any of the companies that actually helped them produce these vehicles never approach you at all to talk about the patent rights?
Not at all.
Yeah.
We actually have to discover it ourselves when they went on publicity. Yeah.
And this was way after your patent was already approved, right?
At least 10 years.
Okay.
And the best part of it all is that before this was made in the military, we actually have encountered with the Chief Medical Officer of Army at that time, who is actually Dr. Wong. He actually saw our vehicle, and he told us that he's very interested to make for military, just need to change the color and do some minor modification. And of course, we've been exchanging email, and then he said, yes, this is under patent, but he wants to talk to Civil Defense first. And then he wants to see how he can get around it. This is his actual word to me, that he will try and get around it. So I reminded him that this is it's patented. in Singapore. Anyway, nothing hurt after that. There is at least about 2 years before we discover that the Mindef has already made this. So there was already an intention from the start. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about the company that eventually produced the vehicle for Mindef, Syntec, I understand. It seems that you have some documents to say that they sent a fax to Mindef to effectively tell them that they are aware of this, or rather Mindef is aware of this pattern.
Yes.
Yeah.
In fact, very interestingly, the fax was actually faxed wrongly to us. We know it because immediately after the fax, the secretary called up and asked us to destroy that letter. The next morning, the lawyer called up from Wong and Liao's, asked us to destroy that letter.
Sorry, but this was during the court case, right? Oh.
Yes, when we begin the process, the legal process, and they were showing us the tender document that the Mindef had, and this letter came at the end, and the gist of this whole letter is that the vendor is made aware and he knows that Mindef is concerned that this may infringe our patent, and therefore this letter was written to Mindef telling him that we know your concern, but don't worry, we already have checked with our legal advisor. This patent has no novelty. This patent has no inventive step. This patent, if they are challenged, then go to court to revoke, basically. So what I'm saying is, this letter just show you that not only they want to make, not only they know that who owns the patent, they are not going to license the patent, and they are waiting to be challenged. They will do something like revocation. So it's a very premeditated. The second thing that's even more interesting is, in the tender document, it is a requirement that the vendor must have a licensing agreement with the IP owners before they can be awarded. In this case, there's not even a licensing agreement, and yet Mindef can award the whole tender to them. Tell me what's going on, inside. Who is powerful enough to override and actually can offer the tender to this guy who has no IP licensing and tell you that I am not getting IP licensing, and don't worry, just go ahead. It's getting very worrying.
On top of that, Syntec, I mean, what to your awareness, what kind of business are they in? Are they actually in a position to judge about your IP?
I have no contact with them. All I know about Syntec is that they are an engineering company. They make trucks for civil defense. They make trucks for commercial purpose and all that. What do they know about medical? Nothing. Yeah, and I think they have consulted their legal advisor. This is their claim to Mindef. Mindef should have verified or actually checked and say that this is true, but nothing was done. Went ahead.
So even after they got that, I mean, clearly Mindef did not approach you about this thing that Syntec.
Oh, not at all. As I said, we have to discover them accidentally when they boast to the world that this was their invention.
Okay. Subsequently, you had to drop the case, but you after that you also spoke to some lawyers, and can you share with us what is it that they said about your chances of winning the case? Or?
The word they use is called the war of attrition. Okay, the war of attrition. Basically, they make you drag you dry, and we of course are naive and innocent to the whole thing. When we went ahead for the court case, it was only after 2 years, because Mindef has said that they could not locate and find an expert witness, and they keep postponing, and every time it's been granted. So when the expert witness was found and the court was set, they were set for 5 days. Dr. Mark, myself, only took 1.5 days. We finished the cross-examination, our testimonial and everything. Then the lawyers called for a chamber meeting and had a long few-hour meeting with the judge. And I was told after they came out that the court has been adjourned. There's not going to be any witness going up. And the reason given is, one, the Angmo expert witness need to go back to US, cannot stay. So the judge said, why can't you put in my expert witness? They said no, because he must be put back to their expert witness. Then why don't you put the two witness of facts from the other side, Syntec? Said no, because they must be heard by the expert witness. So whatever it is, they cannot go up. So no chance for them to be cross-examined. And this was postponed. Okay? So while this was being postponed, a date was set in October and then delayed again until January. During this period, Mindef asked for, or the lawyers from Mindef asked for a 10-day trial, not a 5-day, which we already finished 1.5 days, but they asked for a 10-day trial, and the 10-day trial basically means that the actual cost will go up, escalate. So when the lawyers explained to me this whole concept behind it, I understand. When you sue someone, you pay for the court fee. The first 3 days of court fee is like that. By the time you hit 5 days, it'll be about 30,000. The moment you hit 5 to 10 days, it's exponential. So I had to actually put in the booking fee for the court. At the same time, the lawyers asked for a retainer fee, close to about $500,000. And the estimated, they told me, is about $750,000. And I have to give you up front. So the company wouldn't be able to fight. So this basically means that they also know why they want to drag for 10 days. It's a war attrition. They basically drag us dry. So we are, unable financially to fight them. To quote one of the senior lawyers, okay, straight on my face, he said, in Singapore, the law is not about who is right. It's about who is rich. Who has the money will be right. Who has the money, he'll be okay. You don't have the money, don't even think of fighting. You won't win. So that was told to me on my face. Which is very sad. I think it's a very sad case. And I think for us, we did what I feel is right, which is actually stand up for our right, and also to want to hopefully stop the government from doing this to other people. Because after our case was out, in fact, a lot of people wrote to me of the similar thing. Their ideas were stolen, their blueprint was stolen, their invention was stolen by the government, but no one dared to sue because no one has the ability to sue them, and they were just being told or swallow up and silence. And these people were actually ready to be interviewed by the reporter who did my story. I referred them. They were actually the one who interviewed and gave them all the evidences of the other cases.
Right.
The story never came to light because the legal advisor or the legal department of the SPH cancelled the whole thing and told them this cannot be reported. It cannot be reported. In fact, 1 week after that, we were told that the reporter either has left or sacked.
Okay.
So this is the situation.
And this was the very same reporter that was working on your case as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. You mentioned a little bit about the offered terms for settlement. Can you maybe elaborate a bit on that? Yeah.
When the court case was deferred once and twice, so it's 6 months later, and they asked for 10 days. Then they started writing to us and say, what are your terms for out of court settlement? What are your terms? So we thought they are actually beginning to get enlightened, or their guilt conscience are stricken, or what. So we wrote a very fair offer. Our offer, in fact, was so fair. Our offer is number one, I don't need any payment for Mindef. I don't need payment from vendor for what they have done. I just need them to pay for any future licensing agreement that they make. Any future vehicle that they make, they should pay us and respect us for that. And each of us pay our own legal fee. I pay my own legal fee, you pay your own legal fee. And that's it. After 6 weeks of delay, they came back to us, which is about 2 weeks before the court case.
The court case with the 10 days.
The 10-day court case
Right.
thing.
Okay.
That was around Christmas, just before Christmas last year. And the terms of settlement was horrendous. Let me explain to you. Number one, they want us to pay for all their legal fees plus expert witness. Okay. Number two, they do not need to pay for any past or future vehicle that is made in Singapore, even by any other third party vendor. Number four, they want the rights to all the countries that I have, the IP rights. See, I have, other than this, there are another 8 countries altogether, including Israel, America, China, Malaysia, Taiwan, Australia. So these countries, they even want it. They want us to give the rights to all these countries. For what? Are they selling it? I don't know. But why do you ask for that? Anyway, come back to the settlement. What kind of a settlement is that? You know, it's as good as, even worse than losing the case. So we couldn't settle for that. Yeah. And when, of course, we couldn't settle for that, we only had 2 days. We have to raise that kind of money. 2 weeks. Then we get raise that kind of money, which we can't. I have to drop the case because we just don't have the financial ability and the deep pocket to fight with them. And so we actually dropped the case, not because we don't have a case, but because we don't have money. If the government, if the people or whoever there is a public support us and fight, we are willing to go out and fight the case. Because it is your own sons of Singapore that has been bullied by the very government who is supposed to protect us. You see? So that's the, I think the important thing for me to mention is this. After when we dropped the case, they went ahead with the court in the counterclaim to revoke our patent. And the judge actually revoked the patent. He actually passed a judgment that this patent is invalid and will be revoked. Okay. Up to today, Mindef have not gone to take the judgment from the court to IPOS to effect the revocation. Why? How do I know? I know because it is people from Ministry of Law that tells me, from PERMSEC to the minister himself. In fact, I met the minister. We have exchanged with emails, and I have met with Minister Shanmugam for a cup of milk and tea and talk about this. And he was visibly upset that such things should happen to, in his own words, a good man like me. It should not happen, and it is wrong. And so he was really upset and even keen to open up the case again if there is a merit to it, you know. And that's from the law minister telling you that. IPOS is under Min Law. IPOS gave a patent, obviously through search and examination. Mindef revoked the patent, which means that those guys in IPOS are actually not doing the right work, or they should be sacked, isn't it? Otherwise, why are they giving stupid patent out that is an invalid one? Anyway, the words of that, and he actually directed me to say, look, we re-examine this case and see whether there is merit for us to fight, you know. And fight what? Fight government. Minister of Law, you know, tell me to fight the government. So he actually referred me to Edwin Tong, who is also an MP, who is a lawyer from Allen Gladhill. And Edwin actually got the team together and came out with a study and the case, and the conclusion was submitted to him that this is a very strong case that we have, that we have a case to fight. But I have no money to fight. Edwin's own words is that the same thing, is very wrong. The government has done wrong, and it's very, very wrong. And that is an MP, and that is also from the minister. Government saying it is very wrong. What can they do? Nothing. Nobody can interfere with the proceeding and the order of the court. That's what they say. So nothing can be done. If I want to fight, I have to come up with the money, and we engage that team and to fight.
But this was really after you have decided to drop the case.
Yes, that's why they were so upset.
Okay.
That's why Minister was saying it should not happen. And he asked me a few times to meet him, because I told him, don't waste time, it's over already, you know. He said no, he just got too upset. He must meet me. So we met in Little India, and then had a long talk. And he was, as I said, visibly upset.
Mm-hmm.
So what is going on, for us? I give you a very ironical situation. I'm actually appointed as a board member of IPOS. I'm a board member appointed by Shanmugam for IPOS. Because of this case, I actually wrote and said that I had to resign because IPOS, for the next few years, the roadmap is to make Singapore an IP hub, global IP hub, not just regional, but global IP hub, where IP will be, in fact, our next engine of growth. And here we are trying to promote and bring up IP as one of the big engine and IP hub. And here my own IP cannot even be protected. Isn't it a mockery? It's a joke. And it's not from any other company, It's from the government. So imagine if you are having a IP, or your company has IP that you put in here, and if the government thinks that this is something I need to use, I will take it. You try and sue me, I will revoke your patent. And they have done so. What makes you think they won't do it again? They will do it again. Yeah.
I understand that that Mindef has effectively given you some deadlines to fill. I mean, how are you going to take this forward now?
You see, after the judgment was passed, the revocation was passed. Now they went to the court to have this hearing called the Bill of Costs, and this will try and so-called award some payments to them for this case. So they went to court and asked for payment to cover for their legal fees, the expert witness, and the work done. And this amount to $600,000, okay, from what they claim to be. Of course, I took this whole thing in detail and led the team with Inventor to study it. And he had a very detailed breakdown of the whole thing and showed what is market practice and what it should be and what is that. And the difference is huge. It's not more than 300,000. And here they're asking for 600,000. Okay. Anyway, we submitted this to the court during the hearing, and they just say that they noted it, but the court still awarded them 580,000. So I need to pay them 580,000. When? By the 2nd of January, which is 3 days more.
This is over and above what you have to pay your own lawyers.
Yes, of course. Pay your own lawyers and everything else, And Mobile Stats is a Singapore homegrown company. We won't have the money to pay. I mean, we have no means and no resources to pay them. So it's quite obvious they will actually liquidate or wind out our company. And we will lose one Singapore company killed by our own Singapore government, while trying to do some work that will save life. So in the next few days, they will go ahead probably to go and wind up this company, and Mobile Stat will be a history. Or they could well take over the company and then reactivate the patent again, and suddenly it becomes valid. I don't know.
Understand that, right now your company is effectively in danger, but on a broader scale, how do you think this will affect the entrepreneur spirit in Singapore, and basically what does it mean for Singapore's position in the rest of the world?
First of all, I think the government will pay a political price for this. Seriously, not because but people can see. Let me explain. When the case was up and was even covered in Facebook, the people paste the reporting of newspaper into Facebook. We have people from Switzerland, we have people from Germany, I have people from Taiwan, all writing to me saying that they are watching this space and see how the government is treating me on that. They are very concerned because they have IP in Singapore. They also have companies in Singapore, and they are looking like if this is something that's going to happen, they will think twice about putting the IP in Singapore. So it has an impact, and this is an expected impact from the action that they do, although they don't realize it. If you are a Singaporean now, okay, let's say you are a inventor or an engineer, and you are a Singaporean now, you would think twice. With my invention, which is supposed to be, say, to solve some big problems. And if the government wants that invention, it will take it from you. So you will have to think twice about wanting to see whether you want to do that in Singapore. And that's a sad thing. And even for countries or companies that are here already, you never know. One day, when your patent is relevant to government, you never know when they're going to take it. And when they take it, they will take it because, as I said, if you try and fight, they will revoke it. So this is a very negative impact. How are we going to be an IP hub? I doubt. Your fundamental is not there. You can't even respect an IP of your own people and revoke your own government's patent. How are you going to How are you going to make it into an IP hub?
Because you also mentioned that there were a number of, after your case, a number of other people actually approached you to basically share the same experience as well.
Well, they have mentioned, and they even told the real story to me. And the sad thing was that none of them actually dared to. They were told, in fact, very bluntly, they have been doing this all the time. This is nothing new. Taking the ideas they're doing this all the time.
And these are for government contracts as well? Or?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, or government linked also.
Okay.
And what they do was that they dare not sue, of course. I'm probably the only one who dare to sue them, you know. So a lot of cases has gone unnoticed, and a lot more is going to happen, including even a Korean company that was willing to step forward to give witness of how their ideas were stolen by the government itself. So these are cases that just shows you there is already a precedent. A lot of people do not realize that there is this thing going on at the current, and nobody dare to sue the government. Who dare to sue the government? Only one stupid guy like me will sue the government. Then, when we do that, you realize that he's been doing it all the time, and you realize that if you do it and try and catch them, you'll go on the wall of attrition. They will drag you dry, and literally, then hammer down and say, "I will revoke your patent." You can see this whole modus operandi.